Simon, welcome to the Warrior Academy podcast.
Seb, thank you so much for having me.
I think the last time I saw you, we were both speaking on stage in London.
Yeah, it feels like a while ago now, isn't it?
Was that 21 or 22? November 2021.
Yeah, that would have been end of 22, I think, if memory serves me. Yeah, end of 22.
Yeah. Well, I remember everyone was talking about your talk afterwards and the impact that had. So it'd be great to dive into the things you spoke about on the stage and your kind of philosophies and your journey, because you've had quite a remarkable journey, really, haven't you?
Yeah, no, it's been a wild roller coaster. As you know, Seb, there's been lots of ups and downs, but at the same time, I think in order to have stories to tell, you have to go on an adventure. And when you go on an adventure, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have moments of euphoria. You're going to have moments where you feel like you're going to give up, but that contributes to shaping you into the person that you become, and that feeds into the stories that you can share with audiences.
It's remarkable how sometimes we don't want to go through something, but it's that thing we go through becomes so fundamental to the things that we experience throughout life, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I went through a number of setbacks, dark periods, moments where I didn't think I had a future. But as I got wiser, I realized that it was those moments that equipped me with the wisdom and the insight to come back stronger. And I find that actually it is our failures, even though we hate our failures, we don't want to fail. It's actually those failures that teach us the most. They show us just how strong we are, and we wouldn't know how strong we are until we have to overcome a challenge. Whereas successes, too much of that can make us complacent. It can make us feel like we know it all, and we stop embracing that eternal student mindset.
We learn very little from success, but we learn so much from failure, right?
Absolutely. I think success is more like, success is more like a guiding light. It tells you you're in the right direction, but you don't want to get too attached to it.
It's easy. I think it's easy to rest on your laurels when you experience success, right? But it's like you've had a big meal and you're kind of full and you're a little bit late and you don't want to do anything else. Whereas, if you experience success, but you're constantly challenging yourself, so you're feeling this imposter syndrome and you're outside of your comfort zone, that just becomes a normal way of life. I don't think you get to that point where you feel stuck. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, actually, you've got this energy to do more and more and more, and you've got this growth mindset.
Absolutely. So this is why I love the, one of these mindsets I talk about a lot is this gamification mindset. Because when you approach everything you do in business and life as a game, what happens is the game itself becomes a reward. You don't need to be motivated because just being in the game is what gives you energy. So one of the things I used to do when I was starting out, before I felt full, before I had any level of success, I would always ask myself, with regards to the processes and the actions I knew I had to take, how could I make these things more fun? How could I make these things enjoyable? Because I found that the more enjoyable and fun they were, the more I wanted to do them. But if they felt like a chore, if they drained me of energy, if I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then I would very quickly give up or even question whether I was doing the right thing.
How interesting. It'd be really interesting to talk to you in a minute about how we can gamify our lives, right? So we become more engaged, how we can hack our lives so that we can become a bit more engaged. What I'd like to do though, Simon, is for context, for anyone watching this, we've got a lot of parents in the Middle East, a lot of parents in the UK watching, and now that's kind of spreading around the world. You watch this podcast. Tell me about your adventure, because you've been on one, and there's been lots of downs, like you've said. Give me the raw insight into the adventure that you've been on that's led you to where you are now, as you look back and join all the dots.
Sure. So I grew up in the United Kingdom to two Malaysian Chinese parents who were immigrants to the country. They wanted a better life. They were the only ones from their family back home in Malaysia to study abroad. And they saw that there was a better life to be had in the West. So they moved to the UK. They raised two children. I'm one of two brothers. And as I grew up in my community, which was outside of London, it was in the southeast of the United Kingdom, so very much in the suburbs, I had this belief that I had to be one of four for professions when I graduated from university. So I had to either go into the banking industry, the medical industry, the accounting industry, or the consulting industry. This was because no one in my immediate family had ever worked for themselves. They'd always worked for someone. So they didn't really know much outside of these traditional roles, which paid well, had a good reputation, and would easily make them proud if I were to embark on one of those careers. And so after watching films in my teenage years, such as Boiler Room and Wall Street, I was seduced to pursue the path of banking. And that's how I got started in my first career. But it wasn't as straightforward as I hoped. A couple of years before I started university, I lost my mum to a tragic accident. It matured me overnight, taught me so many lessons. I think one of the ones that still sticks with me today is how fragile life is, and to collapse that gap between idea and execution. Because we all know that we only have one life, but we don't truly appreciate it. And I think if we did, we would make very different decisions. So that massively influenced my approach to life. And so when I eventually made it into the banking industry, it was the worst possible time to join. This was in the middle of 2007, a year before the financial crisis swept across the planet. And within 14 months, I was out of a job. And I was in and out of jobs for nearly 10 years in the financial industry. Now, I might say in hindsight, it was probably the universe saying, Simon, you're not meant to be employed. And maybe it was the universe trying to nudge me out of employment. But the experience, even though hard at the time, if anybody has gone through redundancy or uncertainty with regards to your career, you will be able to relate to this. Even though it was challenging at the time, in hindsight, it was an utter blessing in disguise, because it started the questions in my head about what I really wanted to do with my life. And I very quickly started to understand that many of us are exhausted, not because we are physically doing too much, but firstly, we are doing too little of the things that bring us joy. And second, we are running someone else's race. And I wanted to start running my own race. And so I reflected on questions such as, what did success mean to me? What sort of impact did I want to have in the world? And I just wrote all of my thoughts onto paper, and I began to follow my curiosity. And that was a very important step towards doing the work I now get to do today, because I saw that if I waited to understand what my purpose was, I would be waiting a very long time, because we don't wake up one morning and go, Eureka, I know exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. It's not like we're living in a Hollywood film. And I realized I had to begin with my curiosity. What am I most curious about right now? How am I going to explore it? What is that going to lead me to? And that itself would open up the map. We don't get given a map up front. We have to take action steps in order to see what's next on our map. And so that led me into the world of business. I got involved in a few projects, but ultimately led me towards coaching. And I started building this coaching business on the side of my full-time job. I qualified with a couple of certifications. And then when I exited the industry, things just really started coming together. So within 18 to 20 months of starting my business, I then got an invitation to speak at a company here in London within, ironically, the banking industry, to share my work with the leadership team. And that opened the floodgates to more speaking. So more companies invited me to speak at their internal events, conferences invited me to speak to their audiences. And then in 2019, I got interviewed for BBC and Sky News. And then in 2020, that led to conversations with Penguin, the world's largest publishing house, to write my first book, Energize. So as the world went into lockdown, and as my wife and I became parents for the first time, I spent those couple of years during the pandemic writing my first book, which was released in April 22. And since then, things just went to the next level.
Wow, amazing. And you can kind of see as you look back, you joined those dots, and it led you, it probably gave you the time during that lockdown bit to focus on the book, which you otherwise wouldn't have had, right?
Absolutely. And also time with our daughter, because if we didn't have the pandemic, the first thing, I would be traveling, I would be preparing to talk abroad or talk in different companies. I would be always on the road. But because we couldn't go out and everything was shut down, all of my work was through Zoom. Everything was virtual, so I could spend a lot more time with the family. And I had that headspace to put my thoughts onto paper. So it meant I could have the time and focus required to finish the book.
Amazing. I love earlier what you said about how it's often how we, doing too little of what brings us joy, right? Like me as human beings, we tend to follow this path where we do so many different things, and a lot of what we do isn't what aligns with our values necessarily, because it doesn't light us up, right? And that kind of makes me think of retirement and why a human being would retire. And I guess the concept of retirement is you're retiring from the things you don't like to do. I think the world has changed now in a way that we can really pursue things we're really passionate about. And, if we're really passionate about martial arts, we can go and teach martial arts. If you're passionate about coaching, you can go down that route. Whatever it is, there's something for everyone. And it's amazing now that maybe that concept of retirement's outdated. And as we evolve as a species, it's like, well, we're able to fill our time with more of what brings us joy to retire.
Yeah, I agree. And it's almost like this work-life balance debate, Seb. I'm of the belief that if you're so focused on work-life balance, it's probably because you hate the work that you're doing.
You might be doing the wrong thing, right?
You might be doing the wrong thing. And so you want greater work-life balance because you want to spend more time away from the work you hate. But if you speak to people who are enjoying the work they do, you will naturally find your own balance, because when you enjoy the work you do, it just doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. And if we link that to the retirement,
the people that look at me and say, "Oh, they might criticize, oh, you're doing a lot of that or a lot of this, or you need more balance with that." It's typically the same people who don't really like the balance in their own lives, right? Yeah. Because they like the work they're doing or the vocation they've got or whatever it is. So they're looking for that lens of, you need to balance, personal life with business life, totally separate, equal balance, whatever it is. And so, they can only judge it from what they're looking at.
Exactly. And then this is why when you mention retirement, some examples that popped into my head is that if you look at Richard Branson, he could easily retire right now. I mean, he's sitting on a fortune. He's got all the money he needs. He's got his family around him, but he's still working. He's still coming up with more ideas when it comes to business, either to partner with someone, to launch a new idea, to introduce space tourism into the world. And that's because that's what gives him energy. That's what gives him energy. And people who enjoy what they do, who love the work that they're involved with, it's very difficult to see them retiring because that's what gives them energy. And so I think we are in a world where we have this abundance of opportunities that we can grasp and latch onto. And it's understanding, what is your obsession? What can you be obsessed with? Because when you are able to immerse yourself in a field or a skill or a talent that lights you up, that makes you feel alive, then you're going to make far more progress than most will. Because for you it's fun, while for other people it'll be a chore. If you can do something that feels like play and fun to you, you're naturally going to do better at that than other people, even your competitors will.
Yeah. I think it's very much a perception thing, isn't it? Like, how can you change your mind, the way you see things, to really see that so much of those decisions are within your control, and you can shift life in towards a direction that actually lights you up and engages you in a far deeper way. With your book, Energize, tell me the premise of the book.
Sure. So the premise in a sentence for the book is how energy management, not time management, is the key to productivity. And the reason why I spoke to this premise is because, let's say you are time rich, but energy poor. When you're time rich and energy poor, you're going to waste the time that you have. You are going to procrastinate. And before you know it, you're going to say, where did all that time go? Because there was no plan, there was no strategy. You were just low on energy, so you just needed to do something to address that. But when you're energy rich, even if you're time poor, I guarantee you are going to get more done in the hours and days than most will in weeks or even months. And that is the difference. When you start with energy, what happens is you bring far more value into the hours that you have than if it was the other way around.
So really, the greatest asset that we've got isn't time, it's energy.
Absolutely. I think Maya Angelou said it best when she said, People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. So the energy you put into your work can be felt by the recipient. Let's take a simple example. When you cook a plate of food for your wife or your children, and you're putting your love into it, and you really want to make them eat healthier, nutritious, and delicious food, they can feel it. It's like when someone cooks for you, you can feel the love put into that plate of food. Whereas when somebody did it just because they had to do it, and it's part of their to-do list, you can tell the difference. That's energy for you. We feel the energy people put into their work. When you go and hear a great speaker share their story, you can feel the energy from the way they deliver it versus someone else who might be very clued up on a certain topic, but because there's no passion behind it or energy behind the message, it doesn't resonate with the audience. So that energy is like a universal language that has no words. Yet you and I can feel and understand what it is trying to tell us.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I think that there's, on some subconscious level, there's some vibrational frequency going out there when you put your energy and soul and life's work into something and deliver that to someone else.
Yeah,
it's really a powerful thing, and it has a profound impact, I think. But again, it's all those things, right? Like, we can't measure that. We can't necessarily measure energy. So therefore it can't be real. We can't believe it, right? And it's like when you look at hard skills and soft skills, we put a disproportionate amount of energy and effort and money and focus resources into a child's education from an academic point of view, into their hard skill development, but very little into their soft skill development. But ultimately, soft skills have, quite likely the biggest impact on their upbringing, on their development, on their future success and happiness in life. But because it's hard to measure, right? It's hard to measure a child's confidence or their character. So we don't necessarily put the effort or the work into that we should be doing. And I think probably the same thing could be said for energy, right? Understanding energy and let it.
It's fascinating because when we start our careers, whether you are going into the corporate world or starting your own business, we feel that the hard skills are the most important to center our attention on. But as we get wiser and as we grow our businesses or as we develop our careers, we very quickly come to understand just how important soft skills are. You can just look at some of the successful entrepreneurs and leaders in the world to see how they have understood this. Warren Buffett, he was asked in an interview he did what the most important business skill we can develop is, and he said communication. He didn't mention a hard skill, he said communication, which is a very soft skill. He even shared that he only has one certificate on his wall, which is a certificate he got from the Dale Carnegie Institute for Public Speaking. And he said, if you build products or services of value, but you don't know how to communicate that value to your employees, to your stakeholders, to the public, well, you've just got a hobby. You've just got a hobby. And what he was saying is that your ability to communicate will allow you to move people to action. And that communication is a skill we're not really taught when we grow up through the education system. We're taught the hard skills, how to memorize facts. But once we go out to the outside world, what's going to become a very important asset is your ability to communicate. Because whenever we communicate, we're selling. Whether that's selling an idea, selling a concept, selling a product, or selling a service. Even if you are not in business and you are communicating, let's say to your partner, if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend at the moment, you're communicating and selling the idea of spending life with you. You're selling an idea all the time. And so when we understand how to communicate effectively, it's one of the greatest skills that will help us succeed.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that focus on developing communication skills is something you can do at a very young age. It's interesting. Within the Warrior Academy, a big part of what we do is teach leadership skills.
Yeah.
Leadership skills have such profound impacts on the child's, emotional intelligence, their social skills, but more than anything, their ability to communicate, right? So you've got children 4 or 5 years old who join the Warrior Academy, and within their first few classes, they're at the front of the class they're teaching. And every single class, there's this leadership aspect. 10, 12 years of that later, and you've got a child who's taking full classes and they're only sort of a young teenager, but they've got this ability to stand in front of an audience of peers similar to them, control a group and share their ideas and really speak with confidence and with clarity, right? Because it's one thing to have confidence, the other thing to have clarity and understand what you're talking about. And I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of that we do is develop those communication skills in young people, because they really have a big impact. And I know with my own career in business as well, it's never been time wasted. The time I've spent a public speaking coach or learning to communicate better or finding a talk or whatever it is, it's not so much about the practice you put into one talk. It's understanding the process, right? And just basically improving the communication skills. And almost every time I've practiced for a talk, it's not really been so much just about that talk.
Yeah.
It's been developing my skills as a person when it comes to communicating, right?
And I think when, just on that topic, it's something when I look back on my entrepreneurial journey, it's something that has massively helped me. When I think about communication, it's not just the obvious of going onto a stage and speaking to a room of people. I mean, that's great. And for me, it's hugely scalable. You can talk to a room of hundreds of people, and then that can go exponential because the people will share photos and videos and quotes that you've shared, and they'll distribute it to their network. But it's also communication through the form of video or through written articles or through posts and these social media platforms we have available to us. We've got all of these tools where we can communicate to people in very different channels. And if we can master that ability to communicate a message out to the world, what happens is that we're inviting them into our story, a story that can help open the path for theirs. I often say to my clients and mentees that people will more easily spend time with you first before they spend money with you. And that time is time in your ecosystem. So it could be time hearing your message, time watching you speak, time reading your articles, because it's that time that builds trust. And when people have that trust with you as somebody that can help them, that's when they'll give you money.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, really? From a parent's point of view, energy is a scarce resource as well. Obviously, there's a lot of this is not a business podcast. It's a parent podcast. Yeah, watching this, and I'm sure there's so much they can pick up from this conversation around how they can leverage energy more in their life, so they can be more effective, maybe as a parent, not just within their careers, but as a parent going through the high performance parenting stage, I call it, of those first 10 years where, those first 10 years where you have the greatest possible influence on your child, right? And
so, I mean,
about that, because you're a dad of,
I'm a dad of one. Our daughter's coming up to 4 years old now. And I think I've learned.
I had a child. My son Max was born roughly same time as yours then.
Yeah, COVID baby, isn't it?
Yeah. So what year was your daughter born?
Our daughter was born in April 2020. So I think from memory,
months later.
Yeah, it was just days after the UK went into its first lockdown, and I've learned so much when it comes to energy, but also in terms of how I manage my own life, because I think when you raise children, they also remind you of things that we can easily forget. Like, I talk to a lot of people about the importance of rest and the importance of renewing your energy. Now, if your child has had a great night's sleep and they've got their naps in, they're going to be a very stable person when they wake up. They're going to be very, happy. They're going to be very confident. It's going to be easy to communicate with. But if your child has broken sleep at night, hasn't got their naps in, then the child feels like the world is chaos. And so that becomes the feeling generally in your household. It feels like the whole world is breaking down when your child hasn't had sufficient rest. And that's the same with us as adults. So that reminded me of how important it was to have breathing space in my diary. And I remember a friend of mine asked me a question because he's followed the work I do. And he said, Simon, I'm curious, how is your productivity post being a parent versus before you were being a parent? And I said, interestingly enough, I feel more productive now that I am a parent. And I explained it to him why. I said, because before you were a parent, you have all the time in your weekdays and your weekends to yourself. There's no one else apart from maybe your partner that you have to dedicate time to. So if you have a decision to make or you have work that you've got to do, there's no real boundaries sometimes. You can work until the early hours. You can procrastinate over a decision for days or weeks. But when you've got a child, you've now got limited time in your day to get your work done before you have to pick them up from school, prepare dinner for them, get them into bed, and all these other routines that come with raising a child. And so I said, it made me stricter with my time. So it had to be either hell yes or hell no. If there's hell maybe, then I probably wouldn't do that in my schedule. I'd probably just discard it. But also if I knew I had, 6 hours where she was going to be in school, I had to ask myself, if I could only get 2 or 3 things done in those 6 hours, what would they be? And it just made me much more focused. And it also made me realize that I had to manage my energy better when it came to work, because so often we fall into this trap, even when you have children, that you give your all to your work. So, whether you go into an office and report to a manager or whether you run your own business, you go at it strong and hard for the day. But the thing is, when you come to pick up your child, you're exhausted, you're drained. And so the child is only getting what's left of you rather than the best of you. And so I became more conscious about managing my energy in the time she was at school and creating transitions. So what I mean by transition is that before I moved into the mindset of dad and going to pick up my daughter from school, I had a transition before that would allow me to be present. So instead of finishing work right on the dot and then going to pick up my daughter, because then I would still be coming down from the work I just did, I would probably pause a lot earlier, read a book, do some meditation, do something to ease me into becoming dad mode. So when I would pick her up, like a transition period. So when I would go and pick her up from school, I could be present with her, because I see the children don't want our time as much as they want our energy and presence. And so when I created those transitions, it meant I could be far more present with her. And she loves that. She loves just playing with me, connecting with me, talking about her day, sharing what's in her imagination. And it allows me to really listen to that rather than be distracted by, what have I got to do still? I need to get back to this person. I could literally be present and connected with her.
Really interesting. As well as being great teachers, they're also great accountability partners there, no?
Indeed. And the thing is that if we are more present, we can also be better teachers to them. Because a lot of the lessons I've learned, not just from what my daughter has taught me, but also how I've nurtured my daughter, has actually come from observation. I would be able to observe how other parents were talking to their children. I would also be able to observe how children reacted, because you're far more present. You can see these things. And what I noticed is that often children would come to us as parents and they would lean into our opinion. But what I noticed is that if they lean too much into our opinion, they become to rely too much on other people. So they might be going through a tough time at school, and my daughter might say to me, this person wasn't nice, or I felt a bit shy because it was a new activity and I didn't feel like I fit into this new group. And she would always come to seek my opinion. And as parents, we can be very quick to go, well, here's what you should do. This is what you should try next time. So we're very quick at giving advice. And it's the same thing as adults. When people come to us for views or opinions, we're very quick to give them. But what's more empowering, especially when you have children, is trying to get them to come up with the answers themselves. And a nice way I learned to do that is to change the focus from them to us. So I remember I had this speaking event coming up in Los Angeles last year, and I'd never been to Los Angeles to speak. I mean, I traveled to Los Angeles before for holiday, but not to speak at an event. And I just asked my daughter, Dad's feeling a little shy. He's got this event coming up in Los Angeles, and it's a room of people he's never met, and he doesn't know what's it going to lead to, but he's having to prepare for it. What would you what advice can you give me? What would you say that I should be doing to kind of overcome some of this or manage this? And you'll be surprised at what the child says in response. It's very pure, it's very innocent, but they have their own thoughts as well. And I found what happens is when they share their opinion, they're almost starting to understand that's advice they can take themselves.
Yeah. And you also know how to give it. So it's interesting as you go through life, you're like, it's very easy to take someone else's advice, right? You probably already know what to do. Like if you want to get in shape, you know that you shouldn't eat as much. You should probably move your body more. It's pretty straightforward, right? But you don't do it until someone else tells you this is what you should do and you shouldn't do it. And it's interesting, the point of view there, where you basically empower your child to give advice and listen to their own advice. I think that's something that will stay with them. And also, I agree with you, the advice from kids can sometimes surprise you because they don't have any of the influences that adults have had, right? So it's just like black and white. This is the honest reality. This is what it looks like. And there you go. And you might be surprised by what you get. I'm curious, what does she say to your daughter when you ask that?
She said to me, one of the first things she said to me is like, but you've done this plenty of times. You can do it. If anybody can do it, Dad can do it. And so just hearing these very innocent, pure words just kind of lit my day up.
Thousands of pounds and a coach to say that to you,
Yeah. Indeed. But knowing that I can take those words with me, but also seeing her come to realization that actually I can do it as well. I think that for me was the greatest reward, seeing her brain sort of tick that actually, I can do it as well. She's giving me the advice, but at the same time, it's almost like she's talking to herself. So for me, that was the real magic.
Very clever. I like that a lot. What would you say to a parent who's in the thick of it? They're in the trenches, right? And they're struggling to balance work. I know I'm not trying to get on the whole work-life balance thing. They're struggling trying to avoid the word work or balance right now. They're trying to balance every aspect of their life, and they want to be a good parent. But they've got so much on. They're struggling from even if they love what they're doing with their work, right? Like what are some practical things they can go and do to make sure they're leveraging their energy in the best possible way?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do, and this is more from a mental energy perspective, is the reason we can feel exhausted as parents is because we look at what other parents are doing on social media, we talk to other parents, we read books about parenting, and we feel that there's a bar we have to hit in order to feel good as a parent. Otherwise, you have this inner feeling of, I'm not doing enough for my child. And as a parent, we always want to do enough for our children. But at the same time, every scenario is different. And so for me, what I came to understand when I was going through the parenting journey, especially in the early years where it's a lot more hands-on than it is as they grow up, I just said to myself, what is the best I can do today? And now that best will be different from, say, one family where you have two parents who are together with their child compared to another family where they have 5 children, and different from another family if you are a single parent. And so first is just to say to yourself, did I give my best today, given my situation and circumstance? And that's all you can do. It's not to overwhelm yourself with the pressure of having to live up to a particular standard, because everybody is going through a different scenario, different constraints, different pressures, different work experiences. And so just saying to yourself, what is my best today and how can I focus on that? So in effect, it's being kinder to yourself from a mental perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about being kinder. I think it's easy for us to be quite hard on ourselves. But I also think from an energy point of view, sometimes that I think a lot of people misinterpret the concept of best. Right? Like if I went to the gym, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I tried my I might end up injured, or I might not make it. And in any career or sport or vocation, whatever, if you just do your best, sometimes you don't actually improve, right? Or you don't actually do a good job. And so sometimes I feel like that that focus on best needs to be more like effective, right?
Yeah.
What am I? How can I be more effective as a parent? How can I make sure that energy I'm putting in is actually working, is actually landing? How can I make sure this energy that I'm trying to put towards being a best isn't just going into something which doesn't get any return, but in fact, it's a long way. And the way I see that is, I think we need to question and seek to evolve in everything that we do, including parenting, right? And it's like, maybe we need to question the way we were parented, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way that we say, look, the world's moved on a lot. We've evolved a lot. We've learned more. There's been a lot more studies and there's a lot more data and science and research out there that gives us a deeper insight to human behavior and in child development, that there's opportunities out there to improve what we're doing so that our best is way more effective, a bit like you would with anything when it comes to energy, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, to some level, we know, it's like what I said to someone recently, that if you can look in the mirror and honestly say, you gave your best today, because deep down we know if we have or not. If you can honestly look in the mirror and say, today I gave my best, then you would make the steps forward. But again, as you say, it becomes dangerous if we just kind of use it as an excuse. Yeah, I gave my best today, but deep down you didn't. But
I guess it's similar as like work hard or work smart, right? Because working your best could be right. As a parent today, I took a few hours away from work, or even a few hours of being with my child. I could research how to be a better dad.
Exactly.
Right. I literally instead of those three, like, let's say you got 5 hours with your child, you could have spent 2 hours researching how to do a better job, and the other 3 hours doing a much better job and finding ways to be more present because of the research you've done. So then the time you've got is more effective, right? So maybe that's what the best looks like in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and I think the key is when you think about your own improvement, you've got to ask yourself, how can I be better in every area of my life? Because if you're thinking about being better than who you were yesterday, you're focused on moving up a level. So, for me, it was understanding parenting techniques. It was understanding communication with my child. Before that, I'd only focus on communication to an audience or communication in business. But now it's, how do I understand communication to my child? Yeah. And if you are intentional about this learning, and you're intentional about your energy as well, now that I have a child, I have a growing family, what are the things that are giving me energy? What are the things that are draining me of energy? And am I spending too much in the column that is draining me of energy? If so, how can I start to focus more on the things that give me energy? Because what you'll notice is that when you spend time doing things that give you energy, you actually get more energy. Yeah, it's like doing a workout. You do a workout, on the surface of it, you would think that if I do an intense workout, I'm going to be exhausted and tired. But when you do an intense workout, actually what happens is the endorphins kick in and you feel energized and you feel like you can tackle whatever challenges the day throws your way. And so it's about being intentional with your choices, but also focusing on being better, whatever that better looks like for you. Are you doing something today that makes you a better parent, a better employee, a better business leader today than you were yesterday?
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. Often when we feel drained, it's because we're doing the wrong thing. Like I spend an hour here doing emails and customer service and admin, and I feel exhausted. Or I could spend 12 hours in here and drafting a pitch for a really exciting project we're doing, or having a meeting with the team, talking about big ideas, creating new products and services for our students and parents, and I wouldn't feel exhausted at all. And it really comes down to understanding yourself, right, and doing that introspective work. Understand where you really enjoy. What do you enjoy the most, and what really lights you up? They're just doubling down on that. Do you have any techniques to do that? That give you an instant insight into that? For a lot of people, they might be listening to this and thinking, "Well, I'm not quite sure what I enjoy the most, or what gives me that, that lights me up." What's a quick way of them to tell?
I would say when you think about certain activities, places, or even people you spend time with, ask yourself, how do I feel after I've done it? So when I've done the activity, when I spend time with this person, how do I feel? And just score it on a number from 0 to 10. Because you cannot have self-development without self-awareness. Awareness is the beginning of change. And so once you are able to develop great awareness about the things that you're doing in your everyday, and also the impact it is having on your energy, you can start to change it. So if you know you've got to do a certain activity every day, let's say a household chore, because, when you're parents and you're raising a family, you've got to get on and do the chores. So going back to something I mentioned earlier in this conversation about gamification, it's how can I make this thing I know I've got to do more enjoyable, more energizing? And so, for example, when we clean the house now, we get our daughter involved, and she helps clean the place as well. And as a byproduct, it teaches her the importance of having a tidier room and a tidier home. And so at the end of each day, she's now telling us that we've got to clean up all the rooms. Hey, we're going to bed now. We've got to make sure the rooms are tidy so we can have a nice sleep. And so instilling the skills in her by involving her in the activities that we're doing has been one way that we've been able to make it more fun. Even cooking, if we're baking some food, we would say to her, do you want to get involved? And chances are she does, because she sees chocolate, she wants to get involved. And then so suddenly she's involved with the cooking. It becomes more enjoyable. We spend time together as a family. And so for us, that gives us energy. That we get these special moments with our child. We enjoy it, she enjoys it, and we're all happy.
That's a really kind of way of involving the whole family, right? Aligning families together or something. It's interesting when you were saying that, it made me think. My daughter, when she was like 3 or 4, she was going to a kindergarten / school that was really focused on sustainability, and they would teach her to turn the lights off wherever she went and all this. She was really hot on turning lights up and really enjoyed it. She felt like that was her responsibility within the house, and so for a week I just couldn't figure it out. I'd have really bad internet all the time for a week. Until I realized the voice was just getting switched off all the time. Meeting like this, then suddenly the internet would go because I got the sustainability officer behind me, going around and turning everything off. But she felt empowered to go around and save as much electricity as possible. And so it's a double-edged sword.
I mean, children take in so much. And by teaching our daughter more independence, by teaching her ownership, it's not just been amazing to see her growth, but also how it's helped us as well. I spoke earlier about the importance of feeling like you're part of a team when it comes to relationships. But I think for children as well, it's important for them to feel like they're part of a team. Because I think when you have this separation of I'm the adult and you have to listen to me, it's almost like when you work in a company and the manager says you have to take my order, this is the deadline, get this project done. You don't feel like the employee is being empowered to be a leader. There's this hierarchy. But when you can involve your child in decision-making processes, so I learned this idea from the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by the late Stephen Covey. And in one of the chapters, he talks about this family committee. So, you might have a team meeting at your company every Monday, for example. So he would have a family meeting every Sunday. And in this family meeting, he would put out ideas on what we're going to do for the next weekend, what are we going to do for the next time we go on holiday. And he would basically allow input from everyone so that even the child has an input. What do you want to do next weekend? And the child goes, I want to do this. And so you can start building weekends and holidays around their input as well. So it's not just mum or dad's input, but hey, you've got a say as well. And then you could even say things such as, we're going to do the chores next week. What is it you want to do when it comes to chores? And they might go, well, I want to do the mopping, or I want to do this activity. And suddenly they feel like they're owning part of the task.
I think it's a really clever way of getting them to lean in more as well, and just to feel like they can share their opinions. And it, like you said, the having a family meeting where you actually discuss what everyone actually wants. Yeah, we did that the other day. Last year we did that actually, and it was around the family holidays, right? So we sat down and we're like, we're going to go on holiday. Where would you like to go on holiday? Yeah, everyone had my daughter pitched the idea, 6 years old, to go to Egypt because she's been learning about the pyramids. So the next month we did pyramids already down the road in Dubai. We just did a 3-day trip over there, and she was just absorbing it and loved it so much.
Yeah,
and she went back and she was drawing pyramids leading up to it the whole month and the whole month afterwards, and rather than just guessing, well, she might like going here because that's where we want to go. It was a case of, we enjoyed that because we loved how absorbed she was building up to it, and then there and then afterwards. It was amazing to actually involve your child in an adult decision that leads the family. Right?
And I think also when we think about energy, there are small ways to play this, so you all feel energized together. So if you can involve the family together in activities where you're all going to get energy from doing so, you're able to hack the system a little. So you're not separating it. You're not saying this part is when I'm mom or dad and this part's when I have to do work, but you're thinking, well, how can I integrate these things so we all feel part of this together, but we're all feeling energized as well. So we will deliberately spend time outdoors in nature with our daughter, because number one, it gives us time with her. We can disconnect and then we can have quality time with our daughter. But also you're out in nature. You got the greenery, the water, you got the fresh air. And so you're all feeling those benefits of being outside in the great outdoors. And that's been helpful, because I think it's kept her away from digital devices, which I think is healthy. One of the things we've been very conscious about is not to have her exposed too much to TV and digital devices, because we feel that if she gets addicted to it, it's not going to help her, it's not going to help us as well. And so we're very conscious that, yes, we want to give her exposure. We're a big believer in everything in moderation, but we don't want to have her exclusively sat down in front of a TV while we're off doing what we need to do.
Yeah. I think that's very much a priority for a lot of parents, or certainly should. Just the last few podcasts I've done with some incredible doctors and psychologists really shared the importance of that and how devastating smartphone use and all this sort of stuff can be. And the correlation between the rise of smartphone addiction and suicide rates with children, all this sort of stuff. And it's interesting as well, because at the end of the day, your children will copy what you do more than they listen to what you say. Yeah. And the fascinating thing there is, we can blame apps and tech giants and schools for allowing phones, all this sort of stuff. The kids are coming home and they're watching us on our phones. And then we ask, why do they want to go on the phone, or why do they spend so much time behind a screen? Well, we've got to look at ourselves first. Yeah. Like, where are we putting our energy? And they will follow that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Children, adults, it's the same thing. We don't necessarily listen to what someone tells us to do, but we follow people's examples. And it's our example that sets the standard. So, with our daughter, when we go to the gym or we do a Barry's Bootcamp class, we try and bring her there so she can see us in action. She can't do the class, but she can observe us doing the workout. And so what happens is she starts to understand the importance of exercise. And so when we walk in our neighborhood, she'll say, "Come on, Daddy, let's go for a little jog." And she starts jogging off and I'm having to chase her. Or she'll show us randomly when she comes to the dinner table, "Check out my squat." And, she starts to absorb these the sort of jargon we use in the exercise scene, but also taking in what she observes. And then even when it comes to food, because we keep talking about what's healthy, what's important to put into our body, she will eat everything that we put on the table, not like finish it all, but she will try a bit of everything. She will try everything to put on the table. And she will even have her own opinion about stuff. When it came to Christmas, and she was helping to dish out the food on the table to the family, she was saying, "We have to eat more broccoli because it's healthy, more greens, everyone." And so it's great just to expose us to that, because how we are as parents is a model for how we want our children to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's some really, really valuable insights there for parents that, not just on the energy side of things, but on the way in which we raise kids and the way in which we model behavior and how they copy where we place our energy. And really, really fascinating insights, Simon. I'd love to send parents towards your book as well. So just to wrap up, where's the best place for them to find it? Is it on Amazon or?
Yes, it's on Amazon and I guess all good retailers. So if you just search Energize with a Z, then you can find the relevant links on your bookstore. Or if it's easier for you, you can go to getenergizedbook.com and then there should be the links where you can buy wherever you are.
Amazing stuff. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you or Instagram?
Yeah, so I'm on all the major social platforms. So the three I'm most focused on at the moment are Instagram. So my handle is at Simon Alexander O, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Amazing stuff. Simon, if you had to give parents one piece of advice to leverage their energy and to conclude this chat, one piece of advice that they will remember when they leave, what would you give?
One piece of advice when it comes to energy is start with the physical side. When we think about energy, it's four dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. But if you start with the physical aspect of your energy, so what I mean by this is what you feed your body, getting regular movement, and getting as much rest as you can, you give yourself the best possible foundation to then build upon that. I understand the sleep part might be different for each of us, depending where you are on the parent journey, but we can still control what we feed ourselves. And we can control how much movement we get in our day, even if it's micro moments. Even if it's 5 minutes of doing a plank or doing squats in the bathroom, whatever it is, as long as you get some movement, what happens is you're going to have a far better reaction to your child than if you got none of those things in place. So start with the physical aspect of energy and build from there.
Awesome advice. Awesome advice. Simon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Seb, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, we'll take a couple of pictures now. Yeah? Then you and I will just chat. So we're just going to go around, take some shots as we chat. We just make this side by side. What's your plan the rest of the day?
So I got a meeting with a chef later. Really cool guy. Yeah, I first saw him on MasterChef. I think you ever watched MasterChef here in the UK. So he's been touted as the next Heston. And so the contestants on MasterChef had to cook his plates of food. And he's a very creative guy. So there's one plate of food he calls the snowball, which is a pre-dessert. So it's exactly like a snowball, but it's layered with different tastes and flavors inside. And it's presented to you on a levitating plate. And then what happens is you have to put headphones on. And when you put it on, you hear the sound of the Arctic, like the wind and the snow. And when diners took off their headset, they then said to each other, "Is it me or do I feel a little chilly right now?" So I'm meeting up with him. Yeah, so I'm meeting up with him because, as you'll know from the talk I did when we first met at Daniel's event, I'm all about creative energy. And so one of the things we're exploring is this collaboration where we are brainstorming an idea of putting together an 8-course dining menu inspired by my book. So imagine going through my book, but through the medium of food. And so we're looking at creating this original idea of, I don't think it's been done before, where you can go
PR around that. I think in London.
What's that?
You'll get some good PR.
Yeah,
around that. I mean, there's a massive, right? So you match the two together. I think. Yeah, that's a really creative concept.
Yeah, so I did that with like the cocktail, with the metaverse. Last November, I partnered with an artist. So a lot of her works get put up in the lobbies of luxury hotels. And
for a cocktail linking.
Yeah, I did a cocktail as well. Yeah. So that was incredible. So I partnered with a guy called Agro Peroni, who's known as one of the world's best bartenders, and we worked with Jamie Oliver's production team to shoot the video. It was it's insanely good video. I mean, it felt like you could literally.
This is.
And so
Carlsberg did book launches, right?
Yeah, indeed. And that got so much buzz because then people went to the bar, they got the cocktail, and people were taking selfies and photos, and they were essentially becoming my marketing team. The customers were my marketers. Genius.
Good stuff. Cool.
How about yourself?
Then I'll come and do the tasting menu.
Definitely. And Seb, like I say, if you're in Dubai on the 7th, I think you said you're back on the 6th.
Yes.
Maybe let's see if we can.
I don't forget.
Maybe see catch up for a little bit. Grab a drink or something.
Are you going to have time, or do you think you'll be quite busy?
I don't know my full schedule yet. So the summit event is on the 5th and 6th at the Versace Palazzo Versace Hotel, and I may have one or two other things around that because I'm trying to like maximize the time while I'm in Dubai.
So I'm flying back from. I'm spending 5 days in the slums of Mumbai, a place called Money. We've got 500 orphans. I'm launching clubs there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm coming back on the Tuesday on the 4th, and then I'm flying on the Friday morning. But the Wednesday or the Thursday, I might be able to have a coffee with you, or even a drink with you, a beer with you, or whatever. We'll figure something out. You're free. I know you're probably having a hectic schedule as well, but let's stay in touch and see if we can do something.
Definitely. I will send you my WhatsApp by email, and maybe we can keep in touch through that.
Perfect. Sounds good, mate.
Good stuff, Seb. Take care.
Take care. I really hope you enjoyed today's Warrior Academy podcast episode. We're going to keep creating these episodes because I know that so many parents find them useful or get insights or get ideas about how to develop their child's character. But it all comes down to the 3 C's: confidence, conduct, and concentration. So if you want to get a deep insight into the levels of confidence your child has, the level of concentration they have, or the level of conduct they have, so that you can actually put a score next to it, and then work towards increasing those scores like we do in the Warrior Academy, then I'd love to invite you to fill in the Breakthrough Area Assessment. It takes about 5 minutes of your time, and you will get a personalized PDF report on your child's 3 C's. To access the Breakthrough Area Assessment and find out your child's 3 C's score, all you need to do is go to www.breakthrougharea.com.